Imagine walking through an empty house, the kind where silence presses against your ears and every creak feels like a warning. Now picture this. The furniture is still in place, dishes left on the table, and a kettle sitting cold on the stove. But no one is there. No signs of a struggle, no note, not even a trace of where they went. This is not the scene of a robbery, nor the aftermath of a disaster. This is something far more disturbing. It happened to the family next door, right here in a quiet suburban street where nothing unusual ever happens. Until it did. Tonight, you will hear their story. A tale that begins with ordinary life and ends with an unsolved mystery that still haunts the people who dare to remember it. Stay with me, because the truth might be far darker than you think. The search party's pace quickened as they reached the outskirts of the forest, where the old military bunker lay buried beneath decades of moss and silence. Daniel's pulse pounded in his ears as he glanced at Professor Hale, whose eyes were locked on the faint, eerie glow seeping from a crack in the bunker's door. "This wasn't here before," Hale murmured, his voice trembling with both fear and awe. Daniel's hand instinctively went to the revolver at his side. "Neither were the footprints," he replied, pointing to a trail of deep impressions leading inside. Impressions too large for any human, and oddly symmetrical. The bunker groaned as the door was pried open. A cold draft swept past them, carrying the unmistakable scent of metal, ozone, and something ancient. Inside, the walls were etched with symbols no one recognized, their sharp lines illuminated by the strange, pulsating light. Mira stepped forward, her camera rolling. "We document everything," she whispered, though her hands were shaking. They ventured deeper, their flashlights slicing through layers of darkness until they reached a massive circular chamber. At its center was a stone pedestal holding an object unlike anything they had ever seen, a metallic sphere, perfectly smooth yet humming with a low, almost musical vibration. Professor Hale's breath hitched. This could be the signal's origin. Before Daniel could respond, the sphere pulsed violently, sending ripples of light across the room. The walls seemed to shudder. The air grew heavy, thick, almost liquid. And then, it spoke. Sarah had always heard the legends of Hollow Creek but never believed them. The old folks in town claimed the place was cursed, whispering about strange lights in the forest and the eerie sound of a woman's voice calling in the dead of night. Most dismissed these tales as drunken campfire stories, yet a quiet unease lingered whenever the name was mentioned. After the unsettling scream, Sarah's instincts told her to turn back, but something deep inside urged her forward. The beam of her flashlight cut through the dark, illuminating tall, twisted trees whose branches clawed at the night sky. The trail beneath her boots was narrow and overgrown, crunching with each step as if it had not been walked for years. Her breath came out in small clouds, each one vanishing into the cold air. The forest seemed unnaturally still, as though the entire world was holding its breath. Even the crickets and owls had fallen silent. It was in this suffocating quiet that she noticed movement in the corner of her vision, a shadow darting between the trees. She froze. Her heart hammered in her chest, her fingers tightening around the flashlight until her knuckles ached. She tried to convince herself it was just an animal, but the movement had been too quick, too deliberate. Then a low hum drifted through the air. It was faint, almost like a distant lullaby, and yet it carried a chilling weight that made her skin prickle. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet remained rooted to the ground. Slowly, the sound grew louder, drawing her deeper into the forest. In those early days, the forests of Willow Creek held secrets that most villagers dared not explore. Legends spoke of a hidden cave deep in the eastern ridge, where the earth breathed in cold, misty sighs, and shadows danced without the need for wind. Children whispered stories about it, claiming it was where lost souls wandered, seeking the warmth of the living. Eleanor had heard these tales too, passed down from her grandmother in hushed tones near the fire. But unlike the others, she felt drawn toward the mystery, as though an unseen force pulled her closer to the truth hidden in those woods. She often wandered further than she should, tracing deer paths, and listening to the low hum of nature that seemed almost alive. One morning, as dawn's first light touched the treetops, a strange stillness settled over the village. The birds did not sing, the wind did not stir, and even the stream behind Eleanor's house seemed to hold its breath. It was then that she noticed something unusual, a series of footprints, larger than any she had seen before, pressed deep into the damp soil leading toward the forest's heart. Despite the unease curling in her stomach, Eleanor followed them, her curiosity outweighing her fear. Each step she took was accompanied by the faint rustle of leaves, though no one was behind her. The air grew colder, and the trees towered higher, their branches twisting together like ancient fingers hiding a secret. At last she reached the ridge, and there, half hidden by moss and shadow, was the entrance to the cave, its dark mouth yawning wide, as if waiting for her to step inside. The villagers, however, began to notice small changes in Ethan. He seemed distracted, often staring at the forest edge with a look of longing in his eyes. His once easy laughter now carried a tinge of melancholy, as though he carried a burden too heavy for one man to bear. Rumors began to spread, whispers that he was hiding something, that perhaps the forest had claimed a part of him long ago. Children would sneak to his workshop to watch him work, fascinated by the intricate carvings on his wooden figures. Carvings that often depicted strange, twisting trees and shadowy figures that seemed to move if you stared at them for too long. To the untrained eye, they were just art. But to the elders, they were symbols, reminders of old tales that warned of bargains made in darkness. One stormy night, as lightning tore across the sky, a hooded stranger appeared at Ethan's door. No one in the village saw their face, but some swore the wind howled louder when they arrived. The next morning Ethan was gone. His shop stood silent, tools laid neatly on the workbench, and a single wooden carving sat in the center, a small figure of a man standing at the edge of a forest, one hand outstretched as though beckoning someone to follow. 3 days after Ethan vanished, the village was restless. The air felt heavy as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The elders whispered among themselves, but when asked, they would shake their heads and mutter, "Some truths are better left buried." But buried truths have a way of clawing to the surface. It was on the 4th evening, just before sunset, that 12-year-old Samuel, known for his curiosity and boundless courage, wandered to the edge of the forest. He had always been fascinated by Ethan's stories and believed that if anyone could bring him back, it was him. Samuel followed a faint trail, the kind you would miss unless you were looking for it. The deeper he walked, the quieter the world became. Even the birds stopped singing. Then he saw it, a scrap of Ethan's scarf caught on a thorn bush, fluttering like a silent flag of warning. Heart-pounding, Samuel pressed on until he stumbled into a small clearing. In the center stood a tree unlike any he had seen before, its bark as black as coal, its branches twisted into unnatural shapes. And there, carved into its trunk, was Ethan's name. Fresh. Before Samuel could think, a voice, low, almost a whisper, slid through the air. "You should not be here." Samuel spun around, his breath catching in his throat. Standing just beyond the shadows was a man cloaked in dark green, his face hidden beneath a hood. The figure stepped forward slowly, the crunch of dry leaves beneath his boots echoing unnaturally loud in the stillness. Who are you?" Samuel stammered, gripping the strap of his small satchel as if it could protect him. The man tilted his head. "That depends," he said, his voice calm but edged with something sharp. "On whether you're here to find Ethan and or to bury the truth with him." Samuel's heart raced. "He's my friend. I'm not leaving without him." A strange smile flickered across the man's lips. "Bravery," he murmured, "but bravery without wisdom can be fatal." He reached into his cloak and pulled out an old leather-bound journal. "This belonged to Ethan. I found it by the river. But if you wish to know where he is now, you'll have to follow me. And if you do, there's no turning back." The forest seemed to lean closer, listening. Samuel hesitated only a moment before nodding. The man's eyes glinted under the hood. Then stay close. The forest does not like trespassers, and it remembers every face. Without another word, he turned and began walking deeper into the shadows. Samuel followed, his every step heavy with the feeling that the ground beneath him had already decided his fate. The deeper they went, the stranger the forest became. The trees twisted in unnatural shapes, their bark blackened as though scorched by fire. Strange symbols were carved into the trunks, and faint whispers seemed to rise from the roots. Samuel's skin prickled with every step. The hooded man moved quickly, never looking back, yet somehow aware that Samuel was still behind him. "Do not stray from the path," he warned in a low voice. "There are things in here that hunger for more than food." Samuel swallowed hard, glancing at the glowing eyes he thought he saw between the branches. "Where exactly are we going?" "To the heart of the forest," the man replied, "where the truth sleeps and waits to be woken." They crossed a shallow creek, the water icy even through Samuel's boots. The man stopped abruptly and pointed ahead. In the distance, bathed in a ghostly light, stood a crumbling stone archway covered in moss. Beyond it, the ground seemed to descend into a pit of swirling mist. Samuel's pulse quickened. "Ethan is down there?" The hooded figure's voice turned grave. "Yes, but the one who took him will not give him back willingly." Samuel gripped the journal tighter. Something deep inside him, fear, determination, maybe both, urged him forward. As they stepped beneath the archway, a deep, resonant hum filled the air. The mist ahead shifted, revealing faint silhouettes moving within it. Samuel's breath caught. They were not alone. The man turned to him one last time. "From here you speak only when I tell you. One wrong word, and you'll wish you had never come." Samuel nodded, his heart pounding as they stepped into the mist. The mist swallowed them whole. Samuel could barely see the hooded man ahead, his dark silhouette moving like a shadow in the fog. The air was cold, unnaturally cold, and every breath Samuel took felt heavy, like he was inhaling water instead of air. Shapes began to form around them, vague at first, then sharper, figures cloaked in the same deep black, their faces hidden behind carved wooden masks. They stood in a circle, silent and still, as if they had been waiting for this exact moment. The hooded man stopped in the center of the circle. "I have brought him," he announced. His voice echoed unnaturally, stretching far into the mist. One of the masked figures stepped forward. "Does he know the price?" Samuel tensed. "Price? What are you talking about? I came here to get Ethan." The figure tilted its head. "The boy you seek is bound by a truth older than your world. To free him, you must take his place, or reveal the lie you carry." Samuel's mind raced. Take his place? Reveal a lie? None of this made sense, yet a deep part of him felt they were not bluffing. The hooded man leaned closer to Samuel. "Choose carefully. The forest does not forgive." Somewhere in the mist, a child's voice called out faintly, "Samuel, help me." It was Ethan. Samuel's chest tightened. He could feel every masked figure watching him, waiting for his choice. His hand clenched the journal. It felt warmer now, almost pulsing in his grip, as if it knew this was the moment it had been meant for. Samuel's eyes darted toward the sound of Ethan's voice, but the mist seemed to twist and shift, making it impossible to see where it came from. His heart pounded, his breath quick and shallow. "I will not leave without him," Samuel said, his voice trembling yet firm. The masked figure stepped closer, the carved wood of their mask inches from Samuel's face. "Then speak it. The truth. The one you buried long ago." Samuel's grip on the journal tightened until his knuckles turned white. He could feel a deep heat radiating from it, as though the book itself was urging him to open it. He shook his head. "There is no truth to tell. I just want the boy." The circle of masked figures moved as one, slowly, deliberately closing in. The air grew heavier, the mist thicker. Somewhere above, A raven screeched, its wings cutting the silence like a blade. The hooded man's voice dropped to a whisper. "You think you came here by choice, Samuel. You were brought here because of her." Samuel froze. Her? The figure's tone was cold. The woman who died on that rainy night, the one you could have saved. Every muscle in Samuel's body went rigid. Images flooded his mind. Shattered glass, the smell of gasoline, the echo of a scream swallowed by thunder. "No," he whispered. The journal pulsed harder in his hand. The masked figure reached out, pressing a wooden finger against its cover. "Open it. And remember." And before Samuel could protest, the book flipped open on its own, its pages turning furiously until they stopped on a drawing. It was Ethan, holding the same mask they wore. Samuel's hands trembled as he stared at the drawing. Ethan's eyes in the sketch were hollow, shadowed, almost lifeless. The masked figure leaned in. "You still do not understand, do you? The child is not lost. The child was taken by you." Samuel's throat tightened. "That's impossible. I saved him." The circle of figures began to chant, low and rhythmic, their words ancient and unrecognizable. The mist swirled around Samuel, images flashing in its folds, Ethan standing in the rain, calling out, Samuel driving away, his face set in grim determination, the sound of a woman's voice screaming his name. The hooded man's whisper was almost in his ear. "That night, you chose to save yourself. You left them. Both of them. The boy has been waiting. In the place between." Samuel's knees buckled. "No, I tried." The masked figure cut him off. "Truth does not care for what you tried. Truth simply is." Suddenly the chanting stopped. The mist cleared just enough for Samuel to see a small silhouette at the edge of the trees. "Ethan?" Samuel's voice cracked. The boy stepped forward, but his eyes were dark pools reflecting nothing. In his hands, he held the mask from the drawing. Slowly, deliberately, he lifted it to his face. The moment the mask touched his skin, the forest erupted with a deafening roar. The figures vanished into smoke, the trees twisted into unfamiliar shapes, and the ground beneath Samuel's feet began to crumble. Ethan's voice echoed through the chaos, not as a child's, but deep, ancient, and unearthly. "You found me, Samuel, but you cannot take me back." The world went black. Samuel awoke to the sound of rain. Cold drops pelted his face, and he sat up with a gasp, clutching at the damp earth beneath him. The forest was gone. He was sitting on the side of a deserted road, the same road where he had first seen Ethan. His head throbbed with a heavy, pulsing ache. His clothes were soaked, his shoes caked in mud. For a moment, he wondered if it had all been a nightmare, until he saw the mask lying in the dirt beside him. It was real. He picked it up, running his fingers over the carvings. The wood felt warm, almost alive, and he could swear he heard faint whispers in the rain. He shoved it into his coat pocket and staggered to his feet. Far ahead, through the mist, he saw the outline of a figure, small, frail, walking slowly away. "Ethan!" Samuel called out, his voice breaking. The boy stopped but did not turn. Samuel's legs felt heavy, every step a battle, but he pushed forward. His mind was a storm, memories clashing with visions, guilt clawing at his chest. He did not know if he was chasing a ghost, a dream, or something far worse. When he finally reached the spot, the boy was gone. Only a single drawing lay on the wet ground, a picture of Samuel standing alone in the rain holding the mask. The truth hit him like a blow to the gut. He was never going to bring Ethan back, because Ethan had never truly left. He was part of this place now. And maybe, just maybe, so was Samuel. Samuel stood frozen, the rain dripping down his face, blurring the lines between tears and stormwater. The drawing in his hand shook violently as his breath came in short gasps. Behind him, the forest loomed, silent, watching. He could feel it in his bones. He hadn't escaped. He had only been allowed to leave. A voice rose in the distance, faint but unmistakable. Samuel. It wasn't Ethan's voice anymore. It was layered, deeper, like countless voices speaking as one. He spun around, clutching the mask in his pocket. "What do you want from me?" he shouted into the night. His voice echoed down the road, swallowed quickly by the storm. The answer came, not in words, but in a memory. He saw himself again, young, standing on that rainy night years ago. He saw the accident, the wreckage, the choice he made when he turned away. And then he saw Ethan's eyes, filled not with blame, but with something worse. Acceptance. The weight of it crushed him. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees, screaming into the rain. The mask pulsed in his hand, warm, alive, tempting. He knew what it meant. If he put it on, the visions would stop, the guilt would fade. He would belong to the forest like Ethan, like the hooded figures, like the countless souls before him. But if he resisted, he would live, haunted, broken, but alive. Samuel's fingers hovered over the mask. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his choice. He whispered Ethan's name one last time, but no answer came. Samuel stood there in the middle of the empty road, his chest heaving. The mask in his palm seemed heavier than lead, the carved smile mocking him. Every instinct screamed at him to throw it away, but his fingers refused to obey. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the tree line. For the briefest moment he saw them. Dozens of hooded figures, all perfectly still, their pale masks glowing faintly. In the center stood Ethan, the boy he had tried to save, his mask tilted slightly, as if he were smiling. Samuel's breath caught. Ethan raised a single hand and pointed, not at the forest, not at the road, but directly at Samuel. The ground beneath Samuel's feet shuddered. The asphalt cracked, and from within the fractures, roots as thick as his arms began to twist upward, wrapping around his legs. He dropped the mask in panic, but the moment it touched the ground, it slid toward his chest as if pulled by an invisible force. "No," he shouted, but the wind stole his voice. The mask rose, hovering in front of his face. His vision narrowed, the edges of the world bleeding into darkness. He saw Ethan take a step forward, his voice soft, almost gentle. "It's your turn now." The mask pressed against Samuel's skin. There was no pain, only an icy rush flooding his mind. His last thought was not of escape, but of surrender. When the storm cleared, the road was empty. The mask lay still, until a passing car's headlights caught the faint curve of a smile carved into its surface. Deep within the forest, a new hooded figure stood among the others, motionless, watching, waiting for the next traveler to stop.